Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Today has been totally crazy. I woke up this morning, thought I was going to assist with the technical implementation of the webinar together with our fantastic art director, Lars-Erik. But unfortunately, the moderator, Tor Haugnes, which were supposed to be the host of the webinar, have got COVID. So today I will try to fill his shoes. Tor is doing well. And I'm so happy to be here with the thousands of you following us live today, because I know that what we will share with you in the next hour will probably change your life as a business leader. Today's webinar are 100% live. That means you can be interactive through the session. You can do that by scanning the QR code down here, or you can use the Slido app next to the video player. We will have different polls. We will have word clouds. And the best part, you will be able to ask the speakers some questions. And remember to upvote the best questions so we are picking the right one. In addition to that, we will try to test it out right away with a word cloud. And before we are diving into the results, we will just let you know that this webinar is something that will provide you a lot of value within strategic work, either if you have a lot of experience in the field or you are uncertain about what type of emerging risks that you need to be aware of. We promise you that if you stay with us to the end, you will most certainly have learned something new. All right, so let's dive into the Slido results and see what type of words that are trending. As a business leader, what are you most concerned about in the current situation? We can see that inflation is here, disruptions, uncertainty is probably something that everybody can relate to. I can relate to it by myself. I can remember when COVID came, we lost 90% of our revenue overnight because we have a physical product such as conferences and tickets that have been a part of our business model. But it has created also a lot of new opportunities. And I'm really excited for today. So yeah, stay with us. And I'm excited for our upcoming speaker now. She's the managing director of Admincontrol. And she will give us some insights on why boards need to pay big attention to cybersecurity risks and ethics. So please welcome on stage, Møyfrid Øygarden.
Hello, everyone. Well, like Marius said, my name is Møyfrid Øygarden, and I'm the Managing Director of Admincontrol. It's nice to have so many with us today. Today, I would like to say a few words about how a board can play a role in creating and building a culture for cybersecurity. In Admincontrol, we believe that our future depends on the quality of decisions, but it becomes more and more demanding to continue accelerating a business and empowering decisions while staying secure. Keeping the security of the company intact used to be the domain of a data protection officer. But nowadays, every team member needs to consider the security of a business, and the board also plays a vital role in this area. Almost 90% of security incidents are caused by human errors. And as harsh as it may sound, we must realize that people are the weakest link in the cyber defense of a business. I'm convinced that the only way to ward off fast-moving cyber attackers is to build a strong security for a company, as well as building a strong culture for security in a company. And the board should take an active role in challenging and assisting the company they represent in both of these areas. It's not sufficient to set up a lot of tools to take care of the security if you don't make sure that the board and all employees have adapted the security culture. It is also crucial that the board and the senior management are able to make smart as well as quick decisions, and that they need to have the right attitude to a constantly changing world around them. Results from the cybersecurity breaches survey in UK this winter were published in March. And these results show that 82% of boards and senior management in UK businesses rate cybersecurity as a very high or fairly high priority. Additionally, 50% of businesses say that they update their boards regarding cybersecurity matters at least quarterly. Two-factor authentication was covered in the survey for the first time this year. And just over a third of businesses in the UK have a requirement for their people to use two-factor authentication when accessing their networks or for applications that they use. It is more common among medium and large businesses, as well as businesses in information and communications. Last autumn, the American Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency added single-factor authentication to their list of bad practices of exceptionally risky cybersecurity practices. This is a very low common security method and of authentication, and it only requires one factor, such as a password, to a username to gain access to a system. Although a bad practice like this should be avoided by all companies, it is especially dangerous in organizations that support critical infrastructure or national critical functions. And after the recent development in Europe, which has also increased the level of cyber threats and cyber attacks, it's even more important also for all other companies to avoid this simple method of authentication. In admin control, we see that our customers in Finland are the best ones when it comes to taking two-factor authentication into use, with the Norwegian customers as number 2. In the UK, we see that the adaptation to two-factor authentication is a bit poorer, and that is also in accordance with the British survey that I just mentioned. With the increased cyber threats, an even more digital way of working in all countries, as well as seeing a need for having challenging ethical discussions in the boardrooms, we might need to look for other competence in the boardrooms now than what we emphasized in the past. We often talk about digitalization and tools, but at the end, it's people who are the decision makers, and we depend on the right resources, both in the senior management and in the boardrooms. We need to see the will to change and improve, even among board members, also when it comes to using smart and relevant technology in a secure way. And we need to have a more mature digital competence in the boardrooms regarding the use of tools, ways of communicating, ways of collaborating, understanding how cyber attacks might work and affect the business, and not the least, how to avoid the actual cyber attacks. The insight in how cyber attacks work and how to prevent them also needs to be strengthened in the boardrooms. And a very simple way of reducing risk of cyber attacks is to start using the two-factor authentication. The board members must have the ability to make as future-proof decisions as possible. This requires an increased cybersecurity focus and an open-minded culture where the boards are also prepared to listen to clever minds in the organization. They have to cooperate closely with, not only work for or represent the company. New ethical dilemmas have occurred during the last couple of months. And this also affects the topics and discussions in the boardrooms. Priorities might need to be changed. The business might have to suffer based on decisions that are made. And it is crucial to handle sensitive information properly, both how it is dealt with during the actual discussions and how it is treated in secure digital solutions. You will hear Kjell Nordström talk about bodiless leadership. And how will this so-called bodiless leadership affect how boards and board members collaborate and work, including how they make decisions? Well, first of all, as mentioned, they need to choose smart and digital tools for communication and collaboration, and they need to use these tools in a secure way. In addition to have the ability to adapt to new and secure technology, you need to have board members who are prepared to contribute with their competence and have the ability to challenge and make smart decisions on behalf of the company, also when new and challenging situations in the world occur, because these new and challenging situations will also affect the topics in the boardrooms. The boards might need to meet and discuss more frequently than they used to. They might need to have more efficient meetings than they used to in the past. And they must be able to have truly meaningful digital conversations with senior management. And this is not about recruiting people who are younger or older. It's about making all of them digitally literate. With focus on climate-related discussions, the board members will also be forced to conduct more digital versus physical meetings. Both today and the future demand strong communication and collaboration skills among the board members and the leaders, as well as earned trust and reliability, especially now that more ethical decisions have to be made. In Admincontrol, we still believe that our future depends on the quality of decisions. And I wish you all the very, very best for your future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Møyfrid. I think we can keep in mind that people are often the weakest links when it comes to cyber attacks. Now I'm really excited to dive into Kjell Nordström's keynote presentation on how to work strategic in a turbulent geopolitical landscape. So please welcome on the virtual stage, Dr. Kjell Nordström.
Good afternoon, everybody. Here I am in the center of Stockholm, listening to Møyfrid. The first thing that comes to my mind is maybe it was all an exception. What was an exception? The fact that we have for almost 70 years been able to grow and prosper internationally. It was called globalization. 70 years of growth, 70 years of international growth, and a time period that has delivered unbelievable wealth all around the world. Particularly for small open economies like Finland, Sweden, Austria, Netherlands, this has been a period of time that has offered strategic opportunities that are unprecedented actually in economic history. And all framed within a space of trust. Economic development at the end of the day boils down to trust. No trust, no business. Zillions of books written about that subject over the course of the years. And interesting enough, ladies and gentlemen, coming back to, was this an exception? Political risk is once again something that we probably will have courses and classes, business schools around the world. A subject area that basically disappeared after the implosion of the Soviet Union in the 90s. Now, strategy and strategic work, at the end of the day, most of us are trained to think in terms of industries, businesses, and that's all well and fine, given that the pace of the development in the surrounding world is, shall we say, within the frame. However, there is a layer behind or above any strategic thinking that we have been doing over the course of the last decades, and that is something that we call basic supply and demand conditions. Now, what is that? Basic supply and demand conditions is for example, something that is called general purpose technologies. Now, what is that? A general purpose technology is printing. the printing press. It's affected everything. Every dimension of humanity has been affected by the printing press. Wind, the fact that we were able to start to control and use wind for a number of purposes, it is a general purpose technology. Every 100 or 200 years, we see the birth of a general purpose technology. These, in turn, give birth to new industries and businesses. Today, ladies and gentlemen, it has been argued that it's not one, it's not two, it's not three, it's not 4 or 5, it's probably around 25 or 30 general purpose technologies at work at the same time. And in addition to that, we have been through a pandemic, 2 years in a time machine, and we have now once again a war in the middle of Europe. Let's look around and start to look at the consequences. General purpose technologies, 2 years of a pandemic, what I call 2 years in a time machine, and in addition to that, a war. And let's analyze it firstly at 3 levels and see where we are and what kind of implications this might have. Let's start here in front of the screen. This is what we do on a daily basis, most of us now. This is an old technology by now. We never used it to any extent in business, education, the public sector, but 2 years in that time machine speeded up the process. Now, this is a tool that we use. Look at the city center. I sit here in the center of Stockholm, and how our city centers have changed over the course of the last 2 years. New technologies, general purpose technologies, increased uncertainty, a pandemic, the time machine, and we see the birth of what I call the do not city. Now, what is the do not city? The do not city is basically a city with a hole in the middle. Our cities continue to grow, but at the same time, we can see that the attraction of the central areas of major cities is fading. For some reason, it's fading. I think you and I can guess what the reasons might be. Less office space in the very center, of course. Less of shops, we all know why. A general purpose technology, internet, changed the agenda. And living conditions in that very center of the city, when there is less office space, less shopping, is it as attractive as it used to be? The phenomenon is rather new, the donut city, but we will speculate, and we will, in 1 or 2 or 3 years, have results from studies that are coming in from around the world that can probably provide us with a little bit of an explanation of what is happening in the urban environment. And that's an environment, please don't forget that is immensely important for business. We already today have about 65% of humanity in cities all around the world. But let's move up. Let's move up to the geopolitical level and see what has happened there. General purpose technologies, a pandemic, and a war. And now I think we can discern a little bit of a new world order. That fantastic growth and the trust that we had for 70 years, that gave us the phenomenon globalization, has probably come to a halt. There is no reason today to believe that we will ever come back to what we had 2 years ago. A hypothesis today, and a decent hypothesis today, is that we are moving into multipolarity, a world where the empires come back. We call them oligonic structures. Now, what is an empire? An empire is basically, think of it as an umbrella. Think of it as an ideological umbrella. And under that umbrella, you collect friends that basically have the same ideological position as yourself. It's a loosely defined network of partners. That's basically an empire. Russia and friends is in the process of becoming an empire of its own. China, that already before the pandemic and before the war and 5-6 years ago started to develop in the direction of becoming a civilization of its own, claiming we are not a country, we are a civilization, a complete civilization. And of course, this is indeed a draft to an empire. Europe and friends. Who are our friends? Well, Australia probably. New Zealand is under our umbrella. The United States and Canada. It's all in the making now. And that means strategically that the growth vector for companies will probably change from now on. We will do business under our own umbrella primarily. Of course, we will interact with partners in other parts of the world, but less intensive. And back to something that we have seen before, but in an ultra-modern version. Let's call them modern empires or oligonic structures, loosely defined ideological networks, an umbrella of ideas. We have indeed changed the way we organize our daily lives. Our cities are affected by what we have seen. The growth vector of business is changing towards something that reminds us of a world that we read about in our history books with empires. And for us, for those of us that serve as leaders, we use massive amounts of technology on a daily basis. And we are now in the position of reinventing the way we organize work together. And I would like to underline how unusual this is, how unique it is, that we actually create new organizational forms. Before 1926, ladies and gentlemen, 1926, we had exactly one way of organizing human work together. Whether it was a church or an army or a business, didn't matter. It was called a functional organization with a boss at the top and various functions under that boss, that head. Church, army, the same principle. Then we invented the multi-divisional organization a couple of years later. It was General Motors in the United States that had the major insight that you can have small functional organizations within a big functional organization. Divisions. We called it divisions, and it increased performance and productivity dramatically. One organization could serve more than one client group. Brilliant. And in the 60s, NASA took it one step further. A man on the moon required something new. We invented the multi-divisional organization. These are the three tools that we have at our disposition. And now we take probably the fourth step towards something that has the preliminary name heterarchy, not a hierarchy, a heterarchy. And that heterarchy is characterized by two things. Number one, everything is temporary. In a heterarchy, everything is temporary. It's basically projects. We would call it projects, long projects, short projects, big projects, small projects. It's a mix of projects that together constitute the organization or the firm. And in addition to that, the forced innovation, 2 years in that time machine, the fact that we today spend less hours together, no self-coordination, So much of leadership, ladies and gentlemen, so much of leadership historically has been about self-coordination. Bring people together and we can read each other and understand what is going on around here. What kind of thinking is acceptable here? What direction are we moving in? Around the coffee machine, during a Christmas party, or a lunch together, we self-coordinate. And of course, during industrialization, during the last century, we spent hours and hours and hours together in our respective offices and factories and schools, and we self-coordinated, which actually made the agenda for any leader, I wouldn't say soft, but at least somewhat easier than what we have in front of us. When that self-coordination now slowly but surely fade away, because that is the effect of the fact that we spend less hours together in the same building, in the same room, and in the same block. It requires, as Møyfrid said earlier, a kind of bodiless leadership characterized by, listen carefully now, an articulated leadership. Articulated in the sense that we cannot take anything for granted. People in general are, as you know, not telepathic. We have to be explicit. What is expected from this group? How long time do you have at your disposition? Are there any particular tools you are expected to use? Should I collaborate with external partners? Everything, almost everything, will have to be explicit when we do not spend the same amount of hours together. And at the same time, as I said earlier, we are in the process of reinventing our organizational tools. We had the functional organization, the multidivisional organization, the matrix organization, and now the fourth tool is born, the heterarchy, that project-based organization where people don't come together in the same room. We are now in a position where we have to master two dimensions. The fact that we no longer are in the same room to that extent. And number two, the fact that there is no firm, given, permanent structure in the background. Everything is in a flux. When you take these forces together, there is a lot of work ahead of us. But I would like to underline that much of the work that we have ahead of us also promises a prosperous future in a somewhat unexpected way. Why? Simply because we have a problem. CO2 problem, climate change, it's called. This is similar to the pandemic, a situation that forces us to be innovative. And now, after 2 years in the time machine, I think we can see what the implications are for us in business. And let me summarize and conclude today's session by a few observations. And in order to do them, you have to join me in a journey through time. Let's go back 2.5 million years in history to that point in time when Lucy and friends were living in Kenya. You remember Lucy, that was excavated a couple of decades ago, a small apish, human being-ish little creature, 130 centimeters. No economic activity at the time. Maybe we were exchanging some nuts for figs, but no economic activity. 1 million years later, no economic activity. 1 million years later, no economic activity. Year 0, Jesus is born, no economic activity. 500 years later, Muhammad is born, no economic activity. 15th century, ships back and forth to various parts of the world. We steal some gold, no economic activity because we stole most of the gold. 200 years later in Italy, we started to paint the ceilings. We decorated the churches and the cathedrals. Fantastic, but limited economic activity. Then she comes. Her name was Jenny. And you remember her from the history books. Jenny. Spinning Jenny. The birth of industrialization. 1784, Jenny is born. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about 200 years, no more than that. All the wealth, all the welfare, all the businesses, all of it that you see around us, we have created in about 200 years. And the message today to all of us is that we now have 20 to 25 years to redo the whole industrial base of this planet. Steel has to be made in a different way. Farming has to be completely redefined. You know that, and I know that. Energy we have to produce in a completely different ways. Cars has to be something else than they are today. We have 20 years to redo what it took us 200 years to do. What does that mean? It means, in principle, that whether we like it or not, we probably have the greatest industrial tsunami in human history ahead of us. The next 20 to 25 years will be an industrial and commercial bonanza, not because we want it to be that, because it has to be that. And we can already see how some industries now and some countries and some regions have taken a lead in this transformation, because the understanding is it is sustainability that is the competitive advantage of the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kjell. We will get back to you in a few minutes for the Q&A session, and I can see on Slido that there are already some questions for you there. So I think the audience will be excited to pick your brain on several more topics. But before we get there, I will just let you know that Nordic Business Forum and Oslo Business Forum is on a mission to empower leaders to change the world. That is why we're hosting those webinars like this. And if you want to learn more from the greatest speakers in the world on topics like culture, innovation, leadership, strategy, and so on, we suggest that you join us in September in Helsinki or in Oslo. So to give you a little sneak peek on what to expect, take a look at this video.
Business used to be traditional.
Good morning.
It just feels like people care here.
We need business as unusual, and we need funky business.
The 44th President of the United States, Mr. Barack Obama.
Thank you. Very warm round of applause for Mr. David Cameron.
Thank you very much. Some of the best speakers in the world.
The purpose of business is not to maximize share of the budget. Whoever told you that shouldn't.
It brings together so many people and creates this high energy environment.
We are social animals.
Powerful speakers, powerful audience.
I'll be back.
Oh, I'm getting goosebumps every time I see that video. And keep in mind that 80% of the physical tickets are now sold out. So if you would like to join us in September, don't wait too long. Now it's time for the Q&A session with Dr. Kjell Nordström, so we can bring back Kjell to the screen. And Kjell, I think I heard your voice on the video there saying that we need the funky business.
Yes. And I said that several years ago, and it's still there on tape. And as you know, I wrote a book with the same name a couple of years ago. And I would say I got more than I asked for, because now it is really funky.
I think the book were translated into 79 different languages, and so it became a real big shot.
Yes, it initiated a kind of a Bob Dylan tour of the world. It started, and then it has been ongoing ever since.
Great, and we have some questions here, and the first question is from Christian, and he is wondering if you have any examples of companies that seem to be handling this uncertain situation very well.
The interesting thing is, it's a great question, and I love to answer it because it's closer than you would think. During the pandemic, and in the beginning, in particular of the pandemic, it was argued that, wow, we could lose about 30-50% of the GDP. Now, we know that that was not the case. In the case of the 5 Nordic countries, we all lost less than 3%. Less than 3%. We were much more robust than we thought. And if we compare to EU 27, our European friends, that lost on average 12%, you can conclude that firms here in the Nordic were able to maneuver and adapt to this new uncertainty better than most other countries in this part of the world. And why? Probably one of the reasons is the fact that we are a case of a high trust environment with a huge installed technological base. For some reason, we love technology, we accept modernity. And high trust and high technology enables you to move very fast, to go from line meetings to a team meeting instead, to serve a client from the remote areas of the north of Norway, and the client is in Vienna, Austria, and you can still assist and solve technical problems. And we were able to do that in a handful of days, sometimes weeks. Us, just look at us in this part of the world.
Indeed, and we have another question up from Anonymous. That's probably not, that's an unknown person. So her or he is wondering what type of leaders will thrive in this fast-moving and challenging environment.
It's cool. Your question is cool because, again, if I put things on a timeline, you can clearly see things. We know from research in this part of the world, in Europe, that the first wave of leaders either had a military background or a legal background, either or. Military, because the military has practiced a lot how you organize people and run these functional organizations, and we borrowed and stole some of them to business. Legal, because you needed a certain legal training to understand what that new entity of an incorporated company was. They had a legal training or a military training, the first generation of industrial leaders. The second generation of industrial leaders came 100 years ago-ish, and they were all, or with almost no exception, engineers. Why? Because it was 100 years of engineering. That's when we built the industrial infrastructure of this planet, and the leader had to understand technology. About 30 years ago here in Europe, and 45 years ago in the United States, we saw the first generation of MBAs, people with a business background, as the ultimate leaders of big organizations. It's a quite new phenomenon because people from business school schools, they usually ended up in the accounting department or in the marketing department. They were not the ultimate leaders. Today they are. And this is not end of history. That organizational form and that bodiless leadership that I talked about requires a leader that has a different background. And it is, at the end of the day, because we are short of time today, about storytelling. You have to be a master of the words. Explain, put things into context, communicate, be able to understand. It's all about communication. And this time, two-way communication, not one-way communication. So we can expect people, again, to dance in here that has a somewhat surprising background. And I'm quite sure that it is not necessarily the business schools that deliver this time. They could come from a completely different background to future leaders. And I think we see a little bit of that playing out in the unfortunate case of Ukraine. Herr Zelensky, Mr. Zelensky, is an actor. Never forget when you look at his speeches. This is an actor.
Great, and I think you said it well in your presentation as well, that the pandemic kind of worked as a time machine where we took big steps when it came to digitization, and in some other areas we took some steps behind. And now with the current situation in Ukraine, we're facing new challenges where Russia is opting out of internet. China is establishing their own finances, probably maybe not a part of SWIFT anymore, will like have their own systems. So I think the next question here are quite interesting. So if you should dive into the future, will companies have employees in the future, or will everyone work from his or her own platforms?
That's also, it's so good questions today. Okay, gigsters. They are referred to sometimes as gigsters. The people that basically sell their time. And to summarize, we can see two groups right now that go in the gig direction. Low and super low value added work. I'm talking about all the Fedora drivers of the world, all the Uber drivers of the world, at the low end of the spectrum, lots of gigsters. In the United States, in Europe, Asia, everywhere. At the other end of the spectrum, the super high value added type of work, we see the same kind of phenomenon. Specialists of various kinds, where there is basically only a handful of people that master this technology, understand this problem, can sort out this situation. Here again, we can see how the gigsters are growing in terms of number and share. The middle, I am not sure that will go in the same direction for two reasons. Number one, legal reasons. In some countries, it is already today questioned whether it is actually a gig relationship when you only have primarily one company or organization that you work for. It is basically a type of, you are employed, but not really. And in California, for example, which is, I wouldn't say the home of gigging, but it was very early with this phenomenon. It is now no longer legal to claim that an Uber driver or a Lyft driver is an external party. It is defined as one and the same firm. So that's one reason. Another reason is what we talked about earlier. Every firm needs some kind of a culture, needs something that defines what we do together. And if everybody is a gigster, that is difficult to create. So we have a self-interest of not going in that direction all the way.
It will be interesting to see where we are in a couple of years. I think we have time for a few more questions.
Yes.
Another one that came in here. In your opinion, do liberal Western democracies have an advantage in applying hierarchy approach in the ever-changing economic environment in the future? Really difficult question to pronounce, but it might be more easy to read.
Hardcore and high-level questions. Let me give the short answer first, and it's yes. And the unfortunate implication of that, unfortunate, because there are some fortunate also, is that the differences will increase in the world. If we look at, again, the Nordic region that has been on a growth track for almost 80 years, the hypothesis is that this will continue and the differences will increase between, for example, the 5 Nordic high-performing countries and other countries that cannot offer the same kind of conditions in terms of trust and technology. So yes, the open, liberal, democratic, high-trust environment seems to outperform for the moment. And the other way around, environments where you find the opposite will probably struggle, will probably run into problems, and at the end of the day, for populations in those areas of the world, will have implications for the welfare and for the wealth creation. So increased differences and a big yes.
Great, and I think we will have one more question, which will probably be the last one. From Bülent. Can nature guide our way for the next 20 years and onwards?
Can nature guide our way? Interesting. I think I have to quote David Attenborough. I think you all know who David Attenborough is, this BBC man that is now 90 plus and still at the helm of some of their most popular programs about animals and nature and what have you. And he said quite recently, you see, nature don't have a problem. We have a problem. And that means, if I understand his quote right, that nature will survive under any circumstance. The question is, will we survive? So I am not sure that we can look at nature because nature don't have an inherent will or direction other than survival. We probably have to go back and understand that we are a part of a system, not on top of a system. I'm talking about nature. And since we are a part of that system, we have to apply the usual strategic thinking and adapt to the circumstances, and in a soft-ish way, try to develop a sustainable relationship to the environment. So I'm not sure that nature can guide us. We have to guide ourselves.
It will be interesting if we will manage that. And also what I think will be interesting to see is where we are in the next 5 years. If this will be the bitter end for the globalization and urbanization, which you have predicted before, Kjell.
Yes. It's quite exciting times, isn't it?
It is very exciting times. And thank you so much, Kjell, for joining us at today's session. Always great to have you in the studio. And now we will bring back Møyfrid to the stage and summarize today's key takeaways. And I think we have also got some sketch notes from our amazing sketch notes artist in Finland. Linda have done a tremendous job as always. So I would like to start with you, Møyfrid, and ask you what do you think is the biggest key takeaways from today's session?
Well, this is a very large and demanding topic, I have to say, even though very interesting. And I thought it was interesting what Kjell mentioned about the hierarchies, that everything will be more temporary, more like projects. And I think that for a lot of people, or for some people, that's interesting that everything has a start and an end. But for most people, they are more convenient with things just going on exactly, or just with minor changes compared to what it's been like in the past. So that might be a bit scary to some. And then I also find it interesting, especially since I'm Norwegian and we have a very trust-based culture. I think it's interesting what it says, that we have built up the trust over so many decades, and now the trust has got a big crack. It's difficult to repair. What will this mean for us going forward? Probably that we need to have higher expectations and demands to partners when finding partnerships and establishing partnerships. We need to be more peckish. So I think that'll be demanding as well, but interesting.
Yeah, and I think trust is something that will be a game changer. And in the Nordics, we're quite lucky if you compare to many other countries in Europe. We saw during the pandemic, it was in Norway, everybody closed down. If you went to Spain or other countries, you saw that some bars and restaurants were still open. They need to put police into the streets. So it's like a lot of different culture aspects there as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that is a challenge, has always been, but it might be a bigger challenge going forward, I think.
All right. So if you as a business leader should take back 2 things to your office in Admincontrol, what would it be?
Yeah, well, one of them is, again, the trust part, that we need to set higher demands when entering partnerships, and even higher demands to the partners or suppliers. Again, I think that's one key takeaway. And the other one is what Kjell mentioned about leaders, that we have to be more articulate. We need to have a better and more articulated leadership. We need to be more explicit. And I think that is something that both I and probably other leaders as well can take as key takeaways today, bring back to our work and our colleagues, and try to improve in that area. That's definitely something I will keep in mind.
That's good to hear. Yeah. And my final question is, how do you see Kjell's inputs compared to the trends you see in Admincontrol?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned initially, that his topic, or this topic today, is very large. It's very up there, and it's quite challenging to pull it down to a level which fits Admincontrol solutions and our customers' use and trends among our customers. So that is a bit of a difficult question to respond properly to. Sorry about that.
Yeah. But anyways, we will keep in mind that people are often the weakest link when it comes to cybersecurity threats, at least.
And then again, people are also our most important asset.
And we need to trust them.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that concludes today's live session. Thank you so much to everyone that have been following us the whole webinar, and hope to see all of you in Oslo or in Helsinki in September.
Business used to be tradition.
Good morning.
It just feels like people care here.
We need business as unusual, and we need funky business.
The 44th President of the United States, Mr. Barack Obama.
Thank you.
Very warm round of applause for Mr. David Cameron.
Thank you very much. Some of the best speakers in the world.
The purpose of business is not to maximize share of the value. Whoever told you that shouldn't.
It brings together so many people and creates this high energy environment.
We are social animals.
Powerful speakers, powerful audience.
I'll be back.